They called a family meeting to fix my life, told me I was lost, unstable, and failing. The next day, they found out the bank that owned their debt was mine. Hi, I'm Avery. I'm the difficult one in the family. Not because I caused drama, but because I stopped playing by the script. I didn't get married right after college. I didn't chase a title at a law firm or climb the corporate ladder in real estate like my cousins. Instead, I started building something quietly, obsessively, and far away from the spotlight they all crave. My family thought I was spiraling. I was just working in silence. It started with a text from my older sister, Nicole. Hey, we're all meeting at Mom and Dad's on Sunday at 3. Everyone will be there. It's important. That was the first red flag. Nicole doesn't text. Everyone will be there unless something's about to explode or they're about to gang up on someone. Spoiler, it was both. I showed up at the house wearing a hoodie, jeans, and old sneakers. My hair was tied back. No makeup. No theatrics. My brother Jason greeted me at the door, doing that fake hug move that feels more like a pat-down. Nicole was already inside, perfectly dressed, perfectly posed, sitting like she was waiting to pitch a startup she didn't actually build. My parents were there too, Dad pacing. Mom nervously pouring water into glasses no one asked for. Then I saw the whiteboard. Yes, a literal whiteboard. With bullet points. At the top, Avery's next chapter. I almost turned around and walked out. But I didn't. Because I wanted to hear what they thought they knew. Nicole opened with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Avery, we're here because we love you. I laughed. First mistake. You love me so much, you prepared a PowerPoint. Jason jumped in. It's not like that. We're concerned. My dad nodded. We've been watching from the sidelines, and it's time someone stepped in. There it was. The big dramatic intervention moment. I took a seat. Folded my arms. Go on. Nicole clicked a remote. A screen lit up with a slide titled, Where Did Things Go Wrong? I stared at it in disbelief. She continued, You had so much potential. Stanford. Scholarships. Internships with Fortune 500s. But then you started bouncing around. Left your job. Moved cities. We don't even know what you do anymore. I run my own company, I said flatly. Jason tilted his head. But what does that even mean? You don't post. You don't network. You're not even on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I just don't care about vanity metrics. My mom cut in. Sweetheart, we're worried you're isolating yourself. You missed Thanksgiving last year. You didn't come to Nicole's baby shower? I looked at her. I was in Singapore, closing a funding deal. Nicole narrowed her eyes. That's what you said. But no one could verify that. I blinked. Why would I need to be verified? That's when my dad dropped the bomb. We think it's time you move back. Stay with us for a while. Recenter. Maybe see someone. You mean a therapist? He nodded slowly. We're just suggesting a reset. A job with stability. A schedule. Structure. Jason added, I can connect you with someone at my firm. There's an opening for a junior PM. I stared at them all. The room swirled in warm lighting and cold judgment. And I realized something. They hadn't just written me off. They'd started rewriting me entirely. I stood up, walked to the whiteboard, picked up the marker, and drew one word. Debt. They stared at me. Confused. I turned to my dad. How's the commercial property on Route 19? He blinked. What? The one you bought in 2009? Leveraged against your home. Balloon payment coming due next quarter. Struggling with tenant retention. His face paled. Jason stood up. How do you know that? I turned to him. And your tech startup, Jason, the app no one uses but burns $20K a month in cloud hosting. Still waiting on your next round of angel investment. He clenched his jaw. I looked at Nicole. You and Matthew took out a bridge loan for that house in Westport. Still underwater, yeah. She went silent. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside, ownership certificates. For 3 shell companies. All registered to me? Each one tied to lending arms that quietly acquired debt portfolios over the last 2 years. The debts of failing startups, high-risk real estate ventures, and underperforming commercial spaces. Their debts. I laid the folder on the table. Before you tried to intervene in my life, I said, you should have checked who owned yours. My mom gasped. My dad looked like he couldn't breathe. Nicole stood. You're kidding. I shook my head. I'm not. I bought them because they were undervalued. Like me? Jason stepped forward. You set us up. No, I said. You walked in blind. I've been building while you've been posturing. They were all quiet now. No one smiling. No one interrupting. For the first time in a long time, I had their full attention. The silence after I laid the ownership documents on the table was almost satisfying. For years, they had treated me like a project that never finished, an underachiever, an anomaly. Now they were staring at the person who quietly held the fate of 3 family empires in a single manila folder. And they didn't know whether to be angry, afraid, or impressed. So I spoke. I didn't come here to shame you, I said. That was never the goal. Nicole snapped. Could have fooled me. I turned to her. No, Nicole. What would have fooled you is if I sat through your PowerPoint on Avery's next chapter and smiled politely while you erased everything I built again. Jason folded his arms. You should have said something. I nodded slowly. I tried for years, but none of you ever listened. Dad finally broke the tension. But why? Why go this far? I met his eyes. Because while you were worried about my stability, I was busy making sure I'd never have to sit in a room like this again and ask for help. Nicole shook her head, like she was trying to clear a fog. You own our loans. I own the companies that bought them from the banks and private lenders who bundled them as distressed assets. I didn't start with you, but I sure as hell ended with you. Jason leaned forward. What are you going to do with it? I smiled. I haven't decided. Let me back up. Because this moment, the shock, the power dynamic, the subtle panic wasn't random. It was precision. And it started 3 years ago, in a tiny co-working space in Austin. I had just left my job at a software company that didn't value ideas unless they came from a Stanford bro in loafers. I was burned out. Broke. And completely invisible. So I started learning about debt markets. Not sexy. Not glamorous. But powerful. And quiet. The kind of wealth that doesn't beg for attention, it just sits behind the curtain and moves the levers. I taught myself how to read distressed asset portfolios, how to track companies on the brink, how to buy low, restructure silently, and turn risk into leverage. I didn't want revenge. I wanted control. So I built Thorn Equity Partners, a shell company with multiple subsidiaries. No press. No LinkedIn. Just results. We started acquiring non-performing business debt, then dipped into commercial real estate and small business loans. By the time my cousin's startup began missing payments, we already owned part of the firm backing him. Same with my dad's property and Nicole's loan that came later. A bundle marked opportunity by a bank that had no idea how personal it would become. I kept everything quiet. Because the moment I made noise, They'd see me coming, and I needed them unprepared. I needed them to believe I was still the girl with too many ideas and not enough follow-through. So I fed that narrative. I skipped family dinners, turned down invites, told them I was consulting and exploring options. Meanwhile, I was acquiring leverage on the people who once made me feel powerless. So when they staged their intervention, I walked into that room knowing I owned more than just the furniture they were sitting on. I owned the narrative now. Back in the living room, Jason stood up. "This is messed up." "No," I said. "What's messed up is spending your whole life trying to convince people who claim to love you that you're worth listening to. What's messed up is being talked about like a failure because your path doesn't look like theirs." Nicole's voice cracked. "So what now? You ruin us." I sighed. "I could, but that would be too easy." She blinked. "What does that mean?" I walked over to the coffee table, took the manila folder back, and tapped it. "I'm not here to break anyone. I'm here to break the pattern. The one where I shrink myself so you feel taller. The one where my success gets reframed as a phase, or luck, or worse, irrelevant." They were silent. I wasn't finished. "Here's what's going to happen. Starting next week, I'll restructure your loans. I'll reduce the rates, extend the terms, give you breathing room." Nicole's shoulders dropped in relief, but I raised a finger. "On one condition." Everyone looked up. "You stop calling what I do a hobby. You stop referring to my business as a mystery. And you never again suggest I need fixing, especially when you're the ones drowning." My dad finally nodded. "You've got it." My mom walked over, slowly, cautiously. She took my hand, and for the first time in years, she didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me like she was seeing me. Really seeing me. "You're not who we thought you were," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm not. I'm more." Later that night, I sat alone on my rooftop. Laptop open. Screens glowing with market alerts and deal updates. Thorn Equity had just been offered another distressed package. I hovered over the portfolio. Recognized a few names. One of them was an ex of mine. Funny how things come back around. I clicked acquire. Not for revenge, just for the satisfaction of knowing I'm not in anyone's shadow anymore. I'm the one casting it now. After the intervention, after the truth came out, everything shifted. Not in the explosive, dramatic way they probably feared, but in the quiet, uncomfortable ways that only happen when people realize they were wrong about you. For years, suddenly, I was getting invited to everything. Family dinners, holiday brunches, charity events I hadn't been welcome at before. Jason started texting like we were old buddies. Nicole forwarded exciting opportunities for family synergy. My mom called twice in 1 week. I wasn't used to that kind of warmth. It didn't feel real, because I knew what had changed. Not their hearts, just their understanding of my position. I gave them breathing room, just like I promised. I refinanced the loans under new conditions, with flexible terms. I even assigned my own internal managers to make sure there was minimal pressure, just enough oversight to keep them sharp. They were grateful. They called it generous. But it wasn't generosity. It was strategy. Because I knew they'd try to come closer. And I needed to know how close I was willing to let them get. One afternoon, I walked into a coffee shop downtown and spotted Nicole sitting at a table, typing furiously on her laptop. She didn't see me at first. When she did, her face lit up like I was the one person she hoped to run into. "Avery, sit." I hesitated, then sat. She started talking about her kids, her husband, the remodel they were planning, the grant she was applying for. Then she said it. "You should really come over sometime. For dinner." We'd love to have you. The girls miss you. I sipped my coffee. They barely know me. Nicole. She looked hurt. We're trying to change that. I nodded slowly. Trying is a start. But don't mistake my help for a desire to be part of the club again. She blinked. What do you mean? I leaned forward. You don't get to exile someone for not fitting your blueprint, then rewrite the narrative when they turn out to be the one holding the blueprint now. She was quiet after that. I didn't mean to hurt her. But I wasn't going to protect her from the discomfort of growth either. Not anymore. Later that week, Jason sent me an invite to a tech conference panel he was moderating. He added a personal note. Would love for you to join the audience or the stage if you're up for it. I stared at the screen, then responded. Appreciate the invite. Not really interested in performing for rooms that once dismissed me. He replied with a thumbs up. No follow-up. I wasn't trying to be cruel, but I was finally being honest. With them and with myself. Because the truth was, I didn't need their acceptance anymore. I wasn't the black sheep. I was the wolf that built her own den and learned to hunt in silence. At work, things were scaling fast. Thorn Equity had acquired 2 new distressed portfolios. We launched a founder recovery program for female entrepreneurs who'd been shut out of traditional capital. I built something I'd never had. A room full of women who saw each other. No performance. No proving. Just power. One of our fellows, a 48-year-old mom named Clarissa, once told me, "You built the kind of platform I wish had existed when I was your age." I smiled. I built the one I needed too. Back home, my parents invited me over for dinner. They said it was just family time. No agendas. No lectures. I went. For the first time in years. It felt awkward, but also quieter. My mom made lasagna. My dad asked about Singapore again. We didn't talk about money. Or debt. Or power. Just small things. Like how my niece was learning piano. How the neighbor's cat kept sneaking into their yard. At the end of the night, as I grabbed my coat, my dad pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," he said. Then, after a beat, I just wish I'd said it when it would have mattered more. I looked at him. "It still matters," I said. "Just not in the way you think." That night, I journaled something I'd never written before. I forgive them, but I'm not giving them back the same seat in my life. You can love people from across a table, from behind glass, from a distance. Forgiveness doesn't mean re-entry. The next morning, Nicole sent me a text. "We're hosting a family strategy weekend. Would love for you to come, give a talk." I didn't reply right away. When I finally did, I wrote, "I've moved on from being the lesson. Now I fund the curriculum." I didn't go. Not because I was angry, but because I was free. Free from needing to be understood. Free from needing to prove anything. Free to finally walk in my own lane without constantly looking over my shoulder for validation that would never come in the form I wanted. I gave them space to grow. I gave myself permission to stop shrinking. And somewhere in that balance, I found peace. Not perfection. Not reconciliation wrapped in a bow, but something better. Clarity. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the call came in. Jason. I hadn't heard from him in weeks, not since I'd turned down his conference invitation with that one-liner about not performing for rooms that used to dismiss me. So when I saw his name on my screen, I debated whether to answer. Then I did. Curiosity, maybe. Or closure. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. But there was tension in his voice. "What's going on?" He sighed. We might need your help again." I leaned back in my chair. Of course. He didn't call to check in. He called because something was burning. What kind of help? My startup, he said. We had a major client pull out. One of our lead engineers just left for a competitor. Cash flow's frozen. I don't know if we'll make it to the next quarter. There it was. The crash. The collapse. The moment I'd been warned about years ago when he first tried to rope me into advising him. I'd said no then. Now, he was circling back. But I wasn't the same person he once ignored. I was the person he had to pitch. I paused, then said, I'm not the right person for this. He sounded stunned. Wait, what I thought? I'm not doing this one, I said. But you're the only one who knows how our model works. You've got the capital, the connections. I do, I said calmly, and I've delegated them. He went quiet. So I continued. I'm sending someone. Her name's Amira. She's a partner in my firm, and she's better than me at this stage. Jason hesitated. You're sending an employee. I smiled to myself. She's not an employee. She's an owner. Someone I backed because I saw myself in her. She'll call you tomorrow. If she says your company's worth saving, she'll structure a plan. He didn't know what to say, so I helped him out. This isn't about favoritism, Jason. I'm building something that doesn't rely on me showing up every time someone I love lights their life on fire. Click. That night, I met with Amira. Late 30s. Brilliant. No filter. Came from a background so tough, even I couldn't match it. She looked over Jason's numbers and raised an eyebrow. Barely viable, she said. But, he's got data. He's got user retention. And desperation makes people listen. I laughed. True. She leaned in. You sure you don't want to handle this one yourself? I looked her dead in the eyes. I've already paid my dues. Now I build through others. Amira called Jason the next day. He tried to charm her. It didn't work. She gave him a lean 6-month plan with KPIs and timelines. If he hit the targets, he'd get a bridge round. If not, the platform would be absorbed into one of our back-end logistics apps, and Jason would be sidelined. He agreed. He had no choice. That's what happens when the girl you laughed at becomes the lender of last resort and doesn't even show up herself. Later that week, Nicole emailed me. A different fire this time. Something about a legal dispute with a vendor, threatening to sue over a breach. She asked for my attorney's info. I passed it along. She sent a follow-up thank you with an invite to celebrate your success sometime soon. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, out of priority. Because the truth was, I didn't have time to be their safety net anymore. I was building the next net. For women like Amira, for first-gen founders, for the ones nobody invited to dinner tables or investment rounds or glossy panel discussions. A few days later, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. It was from my dad. Short. To the point. We were wrong. You didn't need saving. You needed space. Thank you for building something we can't even fully understand, but now depend on. Dad! I stared at it for a long time, then folded it and placed it in the same drawer as the others. The manila folder of debts. That was locked in a cabinet now. The new drawer. It held letters like this. Reminders of how power rewrites stories, but grace chooses not to erase the past, just reframes it. At our next partner retreat, I stood before a room full of women. Mothers. Immigrants. Founders who had survived layoffs, divorce, debt, and doubt. I looked at them and said, I didn't build Thorn Equity so I could be the answer. I built it so I wouldn't be the only one with power. The next time someone tries to call you broken, Show them your portfolio. Show them who works for who now. The room was silent. Then applause. Not the performative kind. The kind that comes from recognition, from remembering what it felt like to be at the bottom, and knowing you'd never go back there again. The story they used to tell about me went something like this. Avery had potential, but she lost her way. Maybe if she'd just listened to us, she could have done something great. That story. It's dead now, because they don't get to narrate my life anymore. Not after everything I've built. Not after everything they didn't see. I took back the pen, and I wrote something they never expected. A legacy that included them on my terms. The news came on a Monday. Jason's startup had finally turned a corner. Amira's plan worked. They hit every benchmark in half the time. And now, they were ready for full acquisition. She brought me the final docs with a raised brow. He did the work, she said. Still a little cocky, but teachable. I reviewed the paperwork, flipped to the last page, where the signature line waited for me. Not just as an investor, but as the owner. I signed. Quietly. No confetti. No champagne. Just another notch in a journey they once tried to rescue me from. That weekend, Nicole called. She didn't ask for anything this time. No favors. No intros. Just a walk. We met at a park near our childhood neighborhood. She brought coffee. I brought distance. But less than before, we sat on a bench, watching kids run through the playground. She spoke first. You know, when we planned that intervention? I looked over. She smiled sadly. We really thought we were helping. I nodded. I know. We didn't see you. No, I said. You saw what made you comfortable, and I never fit into that. She exhaled. I see it now. The scope of what you built. The intention. You didn't just get rich, Avery. You got sharp. Strategic. Generous, even when you didn't have to be. I sipped my drink. Waited. Then said, I didn't want revenge. I know, she replied. But you deserved it. We both laughed at that. Because yeah, I did. Later that night, I sat at my desk going through old files. Receipts. Contracts. The folder. The one with all the ownership documents. I scanned through them, and for the first time, I didn't feel power. I felt completion. I clicked a few buttons. Transferred all 3 family debts to a new shell account. Then issued a final notice. Forgiven. No interest. No balloon payments. No public credit. Just a silent close. Because I didn't need to hold the debt anymore. I'd already collected the growth. A few days later, I received a message from my dad. He'd gotten the notice. Said nothing emotional. Just understood. Thank you. Let me know how I can support you next. That was all I needed. Not a parade, just respect. Thorn Equity grew into something even I hadn't imagined. We launched a founder school, funded a financial literacy initiative for girls in underfunded school districts, started a podcast that broke 1 million downloads in 6 months. Not because I wanted fame, but because I remembered what it was like to feel invisible. And I knew how many other women were building empires behind curtains hoping someone, anyone, would see them before it was too late. I wasn't just trying to scale. I was trying to widen the path. One afternoon, during a rare break, I sat on the rooftop terrace of our newest office in Brooklyn. Across from me was Amira. She smiled, raised her glass, and said, "To silent power." I clinked mine against hers. "To visible results." She added, "And to the next girl in a rusted car." I nodded. Let's make sure she knows she doesn't need to explain herself. My niece Nicole's oldest started asking questions about business. I sent her a book, not about startups, but about equity. She texted me the next day. Aunt Avery, I think I want to build something someday. I wrote back, you already are. Just don't let anyone else hold the blueprint. The story they used to tell about me. It's gone, replaced by a new one, told in whispers at conferences, in classrooms where my name's on the donor wall, in family reunions where someone always says, you know, Avery, she saved us. But they're still wrong. I didn't save them. I saved myself, and in doing so, gave them a second chance. Not because they deserved it, but because I did. Because I deserved the peace that comes from knowing. I walked through fire they set and built a kingdom out of the ash.